This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for being here with us.
Great to be here.
It's your first podcast interview in a run of interviews, no doubt, that you'll do as we head into an election campaign at some point this year. Why do it?
It's a format where you're not under pressure to give a grab or
absolutely.
to stick to a script. So I quite like it because it's real.
Let's talk about the big stuff then. We're going to start really big and broad first. One of the things we obviously did ahead of this conversation is went back and read your maiden speech. Nearly 30 years ago now, in fact,
Indeed.
that you joined the Parliament, 1996.
Aging like that.
That's okay.
I was
it's
elected on my 33rd birthday on the 2nd of March 1996.
a high achiever from a very young age. There we go. We got that in. You described yourself in that maiden speech as a democratic socialist. And more recently, I've heard you say a social democrat, same thing. Yeah. I think it's really important to explain to people what that actually is to you. Because I think we throw these words around and these phrases around, but what is it? What is it to be a democratic socialist?
What it means to be a member of the Labor Party, something I was drawn to. I say that I was raised with three great faiths, the Labor Party, the Catholic Church and South Sydney Rugby League Football Club by my mum. And that represents, I guess, on the left-right spectrum, some of it is a bit of nonsense. But it means in general that your starting point is you recognise that society is more than just individuals, that there is collective responsibility, if you like. And so that is a bit of a starting point, that you think that society is also judged by how it looks after the most vulnerable and provides that opportunity, and that government has a role in that. If you put the sort of at an extreme on the left spectrum, government has a role to look after people. On the right spectrum, if government just gets out of the way and disappears, then people will be better off. Now, I tend towards government does have a role in looking after people and in looking after shaping the economy as well, where market failure occurs.
I think it's an important distinction, though, because when people are trying to make up their mind, there has been a lot said in the last sort of decade or so about the major parties being a bit hard to decipher as far as their differences. We've discussed this, and our personal view is actually with you as Prime Minister and Peter Dutton as opposition leader, that is becoming more and more clear for people. But having you lay that out, I think, really helps. And I'd love if you could give us sort of one example of a policy, something you're proud of that really demonstrates those social democrat values that you have.
Action on climate change.
Okay.
If you just leave it up to the market, let the market rip, you won't get the sort of interventions that we've seen, that transition that you need. But to do it in a pragmatic way as well, it's not about public sector investment crowding out private sector engagement. It's about how does the government policy, public sector engagement facilitate that private capital to be used as well. So things like that we've set up, to give an example, the National Reconstruction Fund, $15 billion for startups, for companies to get loans or some form of support in order to then be able to thrive, to continue to exist, on their own feet. But often you need that support. I think climate change, I think, is real. The science tells us that, and we need to act on it. And it does require government to play a role.
So while we're here, one of your more famous quotes was off the back of that period of leadership turmoil within the Labor Party, the very famous Gillard-Rudd era. You did a press conference at that time and you got quite upset and said that the Labor Party, that you liked fighting Tories. It should be doing that rather than fighting itself. What did you mean, and what are you most worried about?
Oh, it means, I think, not giving up gains that have been made. So I meet, for example, with the crossbenchers, everyone from, talk about ideological spectrum, from Bob Catter to Zali Steggall to all of them, Andrew Wilkie. I meet with them during every parliamentary session, so, at least once every 2 months, and just hear their concerns, respond where there's agreement. Labor has a majority in the House of Reps. We have 78 seats out of 151, so we don't need to do that. We do that out of respect for the Parliament, just like my door's open to Liberal and National Party members as well. Now, that stands in stark contrast, I think, to some members of the opposition who yell at, particularly they're largely women from the crossbench who are up in that corner where the crossbench sit, and they yell abuse at them. And I'm not sure that's a very smart strategy going forward. It's a matter to them, but I think treating people with respect is...
Does it actually help you get things through the Parliament, though? I mean, that...
Yes, it does.
Does it? I mean, there have been things that you haven't been able to negotiate through the Parliament. And to be honest, I mean, we kind of don't want to get into the issues in that way. But, and I guess the other point is, this is all well and good while the major parties have support. Support is waning for major parties, right? So we have people listening to this that are going to vote for the Greens, that are going to go vote for One Nation, that are going to vote for an independent in their seat. I'm really curious, given 1/3 of the electorate is not going to vote for you or Peter Dutton or your parties. How do you appeal? How are you going to appeal to those people?
I think you've got
because appealing to the colleagues and to the Parliament is one thing, but appealing to the public is a whole nother game.
With a clear vision, I think only Labor can form government in our own right after the next election. The Liberals...
No chance of a majority government for Peter Dutton.
Well, they're a coalition for a start between the Liberals and the Nationals and don't often agree with each other. They can't appoint a shadow foreign affairs minister, has been vacant now for 6 weeks because they can't even get agreement within. And I can't see any path for Peter Dutton and the Nationals, for that matter, to get to 76. So I think our pitch...
Thanks for watching. For more news with The Squiz, make sure to hit subscribe using the button below.
We're your shortcut to being informed.